Welcome to episode number, let's call it number 30 of the Between Two Brands podcast. I'm your host, Bill Petrie. Hard to believe we've done 30 of them, but it's been 30 weeks since we started. So, really, when to boil it down, it's not that hard to believe. I think we have a great show for you today. But before we get rolling, as is the kind of the tradition here, I like to pay the rent. So, let me go ahead and do that. Hey, if you haven't noticed, there's been a ton of change in the promotional products industry the past few years, past few months, past few weeks, past few days. From big distributor moves to supplier consolidation to a lot of people just moving around in the industry. Talked about that on a previous podcast. It's really tough to keep up with it all. And frankly, that's why I'd like to start our episode today in talking about something we don't talk often enough about in this industry, and that is stability. With all the changes that happen on a regular basis and seem to be accelerating, it's just as important to talk about companies that are established, stable, and strong. For over 90 years and four generations of family ownership, Shapenko has genuinely cared about the success of their clients, and their clients are you, Mr. and Mrs. Promotional Products Distributor. And that, my friends, is the definition of stability. Now, another point, since they only sell through promotional products distributors, Shapenko is dedicated to doing more than delivering quality merchandise at a fair price. They go the extra mile to ensure every distributor project is a resounding success. Honestly, it's the right way to do business, and that is how you continue to be stable and strong heading into the next 90 years. Now, bottom line, Shapenko has stood the test of time. The experience, the products, and the people are absolutely the best. Head over to shapenko.com and get your next project rolling today. Uh, Boy, August already. The older I get, the faster time moves. And it's interesting as we, kind of start the final third of the year, how the industry has been impacted by tariffs, how the industry has been impacted by all the changes kind of referenced in the sponsor read. There was a great article that came out this week from PPAI by the greatness of John Corrigan. Really, really cool. And what it was called was a playbook for growth. And what I find interesting about that, we spend so much time in the industry talking about, well, this company's down and we're struggling here and tariffs and prices going up and up and up. I found it really interesting that the approach on this article was a playbook for growth. And John spoke to, I think, 11 different promotional products professionals who are experiencing wild growth and have for the past 3 years. And I thought it'd be good to just touch on a few of them that really got me thinking and what the key takeaway is, at least for me. I made notes, got to put on the spectacles. Here we go. So number one was Todd Moyer from TK Promotions. Now, what his focus has been, and the reason his company has grown, is he has focused on Pareto's 80-20 rule. He's focusing on the top 20% of his clients to generate 80% of his revenue. And they've experienced 276% growth from 2021 to 2024. And my takeaway from that is because he's growing the top 20% of his accounts, that's really much easier to grow those accounts that are already doing business with you at a high level. It's easier to increase that than it is to get that 80% into that 20%. That's not to say you ignore the 80%. You work on them hard too. But providing that concierge level experience to that top 20% of your clients, the ones who are really fueling your growth, that makes a ton of sense to me. I really, really like that. Mitch Silver, good friend of mine from Printable and good friend of the podcast, actually. Same as Todd, but he also ensures that they are deeply connected to that 20% and not just their main contacts, event planners, HR team members, and sales leadership. And one of these other things that Mitch has done, they have targeted acquisition that was plugged into their very disciplined creative marketing machine, and they've experienced same 3-year period, 2021 to 2024, a 333% growth. That is pretty damn impressive. So my takeaway with that was connection. Even in a very digital society, even where AI is infiltrating every single aspect of our lives, whether we know it or want it, We still are humans and we crave that connection. And Mitch and his team provide that. And that's really helped fuel their growth. I love that. Jeff Gripando from GBS Brand Connect. I may have pronounced that last name wrong. Apologies. What his focus has been for the last 3 years is presenting multiple solutions to the same client base. So they had been known for print for a long time, but he decided to make strategic hires. The one that comes to mind is a good friend, Nadav Raviv, just a great guy, high energy and extremely passionate about sales and promotional products. He hired Nadav and other folks to educate their team, and they've experienced 261% growth from 2021 to 2024. Takeaway there, selling adjacent services can help you dramatically grow your business. If you are primarily a promotional products distributor, and you probably are if you're listening to this podcast, you should look into offering print services, SEO services, any sort of digital marketing services. Become that boutique agency. People crave that, for lack of a better term, one-stop shop experience. And I think that's a great, great takeaway there. Griffith McDaniel from Brandwell, digital transformation was their focus. They have invested in a Salesforce automation platform that's compatible with Zoom Info, LinkedIn, and other platforms. I love it because when you're growing, things get very busy. You get busy doing the actual work of growing your business, and focused outreach tends to take a hit. So, my takeaway there is what they've done is really, instead of focusing on just quantity, they've focused on quality. And I'm telling you from experience, that usually ends, especially after you have been established. Technology can help you determine who is the higher quality prospect, who are the companies and organizations and people most likely to buy from you. Because just because you are offer great products and services doesn't mean everybody's going to buy from you. You have to understand how to make that connection and make that work. And finally, my good friend over at Vault Promotions, a good time player, man, Josh Robbins, targeted marketing. He's focused on the distributors who will work with them best in the ecosystem they've developed. He had this great quote. He stopped fishing and started hunting, and they've seen revenue grow 213% over the past 3 years. So, again, this kind of leads into my last one. My takeaway again is focus on the people who are likely to buy from you. Not everybody is your customer just because they have big budgets, just because they have deep pockets, and just because they buy what you happen to sell. Find the clients that are likely to work with you. They share the same vision, they share the same values, they understand how you go to market and why you are a superior choice. So, a quick start off to the podcast today. Trying to keep it tight. Last week was a great podcast, but went a little longer than I wanted, and that's on me because, like it or not, I'm your host. So great article. I highly encourage everybody to head over to ppai.org, read this fantastic article by John Corrigan. I mentioned 5 people. There's a few others who really had some great things and might help you take away and grow your sales. Hey, but before we get to our guest, not a big surprise, but always good to have this guy back on the podcast. Hey, many people know how to build a business, but few understand not only when to sell that business, but the process involved to ensure that you find the right partner to maximize the return on your investment. Now, honestly, you need an expert, and I'm talking an expert in the promotional products space. And that's to help you. And that's where our good pals over at Certified Marketing Consultants come in. Jamie Watson and her team quite literally have decades of experience facilitating private company sales in the branded merchandise space. Now, to help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, head over or reach out to our good friends over at Certified Marketing Consultants at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, let's go ahead and end this section and get to my not so surprised guest today. My guest today needs no introduction, so for the first time in a long time, I'm not introducing him. Well, actually, I will do this. He's best known as Jade Kreider's father. Let me
Yes.
introduce the one and only Kirby Hasseman back to the friendly confines of this weird podcast space. Kirby, I feel like we've done this before. It
We
is
have.
now the second dramatic return, or is it the third dramatic
Oh,
return of you
yeah, only
here
three.
at the Between Two Brands podcast? Thank you for joining me, sir.
Dude, always good to see you. And it's funny, I think like because we're both running in different directions, we don't get to catch up as much. I used to
No,
get to catch up with you all the time. And so
every week.
this is really, really great to see you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you too, and thanks for coming on board. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you guys broke up. You guys aren't friends anymore," and it's probably time to shed a little light on this and be
Yeah.
transparent. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but yeah, we had a huge falling out, and so there were six people that brokered this little détente in this little piece you're experiencing right now. No kidding. Well, Kirby and I love each other. We're just
Yeah.
busy, wanting to do
Yeah.
different things. Lighten up, folks.
Yeah.
Hey, but we're going to do something that traditionally we did on our former podcast
Mhm.
of Promo Up Front, which is when the ASI top 40 list comes out, it's time to debate and dissect
Mm.
the list. So,
So
Kirby,
that's
I
what
know
we're
you're
doing.
ready.
Cool.
Yeah, and Kirby did just as little preparation as usual, so everything feels just like a comfortable pair of jeans. All
Yeah.
right, let's start with suppliers, and
Okay.
we're just going to go back and forth some observations. I'm going to start with my takeaways. Let me put on my spectacles.
Yep.
All right, my first takeaway was Kuzi Group at number six
Mm.
at $301 million, down 5.6% from
Yep.
the previous year. I thought it was going to be so much more given
Mm.
all the rhetoric and
Mm.
bullshit in the promotional products group. It seems like every third complaint is about Kuzi Group.
Mm.
And I'm not here to, I think all that stuff's always silly, but given the amount of
The
complaints
noise.
that I've seen, yeah, I was surprised by that. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be lower. I thought they were going to be like, wow, that's going to be painful to look at.
Yeah. I actually, so I love that observation by you. It doesn't surprise me that they were only down that much. And a couple things. Number one, people complain just to complain, and we've talked about that a million
What?
times. Like the idea of going on social media to vent about somebody else's business is like one of my pet peeves. I just like be an adult. So the idea that the complaining didn't necessarily translate, although 5% is a number at that, I mean, it
Oh,
is a
it's a
number.
huge number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is interesting about Kuzi Group is we forget the number of like they're one of the, if not the biggest,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
probably the biggest calendar manufacturer. And you go, who cares? But that is repeat
No,
business
it's
that's
still,
super sticky, super sticky.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's an
harder
annuity
to change it.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you have a product with them, it's like it's a real pain in the ass to change it. And so
Yeah.
I think it makes sense that they have that.
Awesome. Good observation. All right. What was your first takeaway of that top 40 list, Kirby?
Yeah. So what was interesting to me is obviously everybody's talking about the SNS acquisition, and they took a
Yeah.
huge jump of 70%.
Yeah.
But one and two, you had Sanmar and S&S. And sort of
Yeah.
my observation is it's a tale of two business models,
Yeah.
right? Like you have Sanmar that is just right down the middle. They do their thing. I'm sure they do acquisitions that I don't hear about. Maybe, I don't
Mhm.
know, but that's not how they grow. They just kind of grow with operational efficiency, with marketing, with product, the kind of the traditional way. And then S&S took this big giant growth with
Mhm.
acquisition. And I felt like,
Yeah.
kind of a tale of two companies or two business models, I guess, is what I mean by
Yeah.
that. And so, and
Two
again,
ways to approach
5.6
growth.
growth,
Yeah.
like we were talking about 5 point whatever
Yeah.
with 5.6 with Kuzi down,
Yeah.
5.6 up feels pretty good, for
Yeah.
Sanmar.
Well, and
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then for SNS, it was 71%.
yeah, exactly.
I thought it was so weird to go on this list and not see Alpha Broder. That was
Yeah.
so bizarre to me. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, and it is two different ways to grow. You
Yeah.
do it either organically by how Sanmar's doing it, or you do it by acquisition. So growth
Neither's
is
wrong.
growth.
Yeah,
So
neither's
nope,
wrong. I
neither's
don't,
wrong.
yeah, but it was interesting to see that one and two just took dramatically different approaches.
Yeah. AutoCap, man, what a huge jump they had. Up from 11 places from 39 to 28 with a 24% revenue increase.
Mm,
And what I took away from that is given all the competition out there in the
mm,
headwear space,
yeah.
and sure, auto's got a brand name and retail as well.
Hmm.
But I just thought that's a big jump,
Yeah.
and again, not exactly sure if it's organic or how exactly they did it, but man, that one jumped out at me.
Yeah, it's funny. My follow-up to that is kind of the same. is the two that jumped off the growth chart at
Mhm.
me were Showdown and Hirsch. So you had
Yeah.
24% and 22% respectively. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is right, but I look at it as go, okay, the niches seem to be doing well when they're doing well
Right.
marketing. So
Yeah.
that was sort of
No,
my
absolutely.
sort of take on that one.
No, I love that. What's your next takeaway?
Just the opposite side of this. I was surprised to see PCNA and Gold Star both make significant decreases. And I don't know. Yeah, okay, we do share a brain.
Yep.
So my take, and I'm not sure if this is right, but I did see the generalist in
Hmm.
hard goods felt
Hmm.
like those were suppliers that took a step back. I don't know if that's because of tariffs or what, but if you look at PCNA, Kuzi Group, Gold Star, kind of hard
Yeah.
goods, fairly general, and those ones
Right.
took steps back. I don't know if that it was just
I,
an observation.
I don't either. PCNA stepped back, what, 4.5%.
Mhm.
But you look at Gold Star, they dropped 29%. That
Caught my
is
eye.
precipitous. I mean,
Yeah,
they dropped from number 28 to number 40. And obviously, there's been quite a big shakeup over at Gold Star. Kenny Ved no longer there. But man, that is a drop. If I were running that company, if I were working in that company, I'd be very concerned about. I'm
it's a big
sure
number.
they have a plan to turn it around. I'm sure that
Yep.
plan, because I Charles Dugan, just a tremendous guy,
Hmm.
and he's got and Heather Smart under she's a great leader. I'm sure they will figure it out. But the numbers are the numbers. And
Yeah,
that one jumped out at me as like, holy hole in a donut. That's uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah. That was well. Again, as I looked at the list and tried to
Yeah.
come up with observations, that was one that it, it's almost like, and this just popped in my head, so bear with me.
Yeah.
I almost would rather not be on the list
Absolutely.
because if you were at
I
number
agree.
41, we're not talking about it.
I used to joke when I was in college and I took an accounting class and I was not anybody who knows me knows I am not predisposed to do numbers well. I have to really have quiet. I have to think I can do it, but it takes me longer and a
Mhm.
lot more calorie burn. And I was in my accounting class for my business major at the time and I worked hard. I got a 34 and I thought I would have just been better had I just gone out, had a couple pops, gone to a few parties, and said, "Yeah, I didn't take the test,"
Yeah.
and gotten a zero. Because honestly, the net result was the same. So
Yeah.
that's my analogy for what you just said. Absolutely, I'd rather not be on the list. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one I saw or thought apparel is still king. I mean, you
Hmm.
have the top three positions in Sanmar, SNS, and Gildan representing 8 billion with a B in sales.
Yeah.
For a while, I think we've thought apparel is about 33 to 34% of the industry, and I think it's getting closer to half. I think
Oh,
apparel
yeah.
seems to be really, especially, and I think since COVID, it's taken much more of a foothold in terms of apparel. At least that's my observation.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And what I would say is I think we've become it's one of the things that end user are asking for, obviously.
Yeah.
Number two, I think the sales professionals have gotten more. Like I remember when apparel became in the industry, and it was like, oh my God, what do you mean there's got to be two suppliers? We're
Right.
shipping over here, and like it was so complex. And I think that we've just gotten it's not that complex. And
Yeah.
the other piece, I think the print on demand piece, right? It has made
Absolutely.
it so much easier to do for everybody. I mean, we can print like this shirt right here was printed
Yeah.
6 feet away from me, and it
Well,
gives you flexibility when it comes to apparel.
and not only that, if you don't want to have any sort of printer in your house, you can have a robust company store and have print on demand through
Exactly.
many suppliers. So
Yeah,
great
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
All right. Do you have any other observations?
That's all I got from the supplier
Okay.
side. Yeah.
The only one I'll add from the supplier side I really love the representation of family-owned companies. Certainly
Mm,
HIT, even though it's ginormous,
yeah.
family-owned company. CJ
Yeah.
Schmidt gets his hands dirty. He works in and on that
Yes.
business. But how about Hirsch? Still a family-owned company, Blue Generation, family-owned company.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of it because it goes back to the roots of our industry.
Mm,
And sometimes we, in the corporatization of the branded merchandise space, we kind of lose perspective of where we came from. And when I see companies like that, it reminds me of where we came from. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a really good one, and I hadn't thought about that, and so I'm glad you pointed it out.
all right, shall we move to the distributor side of the equation, Kirby Hasseman?
Yes, sir. You want me to go
You want to
first?
lead us off? Yeah,
Yeah,
lead us
sure.
off. Yeah.
So,
Wrong.
I,
Sorry.
just
Just a bad habit.
yeah,
Just a habit.
yeah. I think live by the acquisition, die by the acquisition. So we talked
Mhm.
about Sanmar and
Yeah.
SNS. Uh,
Yeah.
I actually draw a pretty similar correlation between 4imprint and Halo, right?
Mhm.
4imprint, it's kind of your Sanmar. It's like they're going to market. They're doing
Yeah.
exactly what they do. They're running ads that they
Hmm.
do their model really, really well. I feel like Halo certainly does its model well, but they certainly are more acquisition driven. And as I look
Yep.
at their numbers, they dropped this year, and I'm like, I don't know this, but it's like those people who
Yeah.
you acquire or you recruit or whatever, they can just
Yeah.
as easily leave. And so back in what was it, 2022, they cracked a billion. They dropped a
Yep.
decent amount last year, and obviously, or
Hmm.
2 years ago, excuse me. And
Yeah.
they had 3% increase, but four
But
imprint
flat.
feels like it just keeps coming along. So it's just a tale of two models again.
100%. And everybody knows, or most people know, I worked at Halo for 8 years. Started 9 months before the bankruptcy, and then stayed for a good 7 years afterward. And I've never liked that model. It's the
Mm.
reason I left. We can get into why I left. I mean, how I left. Everybody knows how I left. But I did not like the model. It didn't
Yeah.
appeal to me because at the time, maybe it's a little different now. I really don't know, and it's fine. But it didn't place a premium on helping people grow their business, which is what I
Mm.
always enjoyed doing. It was just, okay, great, you just got that acquisition, or you just recruited that salesperson. What's in your pipeline? It was
Yeah.
just this cannibalistic approach. I never liked it, and maybe it's still like they're just a hair under $1 billion.
Yeah,
So
they're doing okay. But
they're kind of, by my estimation, they're going to have a better profitability year than Brand of Eight. I'm not sure about that, but preliminary numbers would suggest that I shouldn't be throwing stones at them.
well, I don't know that it's throwing stones. It's just like we said
Oh, I
about
know. I'm just
the
kidding.
SNS the other way. It is just a different business model. I agree with
Yeah.
you. Now, I think
Yeah.
for in some instances, acquisitions is a perfectly wonderful way to grow. But I
I
think
think a mix.
a mix and being thoughtful about it. And it's like, again, the folks you recruit in can certainly, the grass is always greener sometimes. And so I think
Yeah,
it plays out.
there's thoughtful acquisitions that this is a good cultural fit. This serves a market that we don't serve. There's a lot of complementary, and then they have a pulse and a book of business. We want them in our company, and when I, at least my experience when I was at Halo, so I don't want to say that's exactly what it is now. Other people can say that or not. But that was absolutely the approach. If they have a book of business above X and
Mhm.
they have a pulse, let's get them in the door.
Yeah.
And so I just, again, that was never my approach. Speaking of, kind of riffing off of what you said, huge leap from I Promote You from 15 to 8. Now, obviously,
Mm.
that was due to the AIA acquisition. So
Right.
kind of touched on that. But I wanted to say again, that's one of those acquisitions nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
It just came out of the blue, and I like those ones. And we used to joke on the old podcast that we are not the acquisition podcast of record in the promotion products industry. But I think it goes to it bears mentioning that Lori Bauer and her team that she's built have integrated AIA, and now it's all under I Promote You, and have done a really great job of that. And if we're all being honest, I Promote You had a little bit of a kind of a tinge with the previous leadership there.
Mm.
And you can do the math on that, dear listener or viewer. But Lori and her new leadership team have really kind of changed that narrative, and I think that is reflected in this number.
Do you think, since we're riffing, do you think that it makes sense now that that acquisition happens? You got the AIA
Mhm.
going into I Promote You, and
Yeah,
based on what you just said, do you think it's
yeah.
time for a rebrand?
It's been time for a rebrand since that company was called I Promote You. I hate the name of that company. It's all it's felt. You just teed me up and you know what you did. It's just sticky. There is some brand recognition there, and I appreciate that, but I think it's time to elevate that brand a little bit. So I don't know if there's anybody in the industry who does that. I'm sure somebody could figure that out.
For what
Do
it's
you
worth,
have
I asked because I agree with you. Like
yeah.
it's one of those companies that I'm like, come on, guys, you're now becoming one of the premier companies. Look like it, act like it. You're in the
Yeah,
branding
well,
business. So
even if you change
that's, I'm not
the
trying to take a
letter
hot
U
shot,
at
but
yeah, even if you take the letter U at the end and turn it into YOU, that would be a marked improvement. But
yeah.
in my opinion, and I don't work there, so that's exactly what my opinion matters. All right, you got another one for us there?
So this is sort of a hot take. Okay. So I think that,
I'll decide if it,
yeah.
you say things are hot takes all the time, and sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. I will tell you if this is a hot take. So go ahead. I am now judging your take.
Okay. So I hear all the time that, oh gosh, this, private equity coming in is terrible for the industry and all these acquisitions are terrible for the industry. And I think my take is that consolidation isn't killing competition. It's creating two industries. It's creating the giants and the specialists. So I do think that the middle is going to continue to struggle. So that's sort of my take is that like it's not killing the industry. There's, as we said, there's different business models, but I do think, and we kind of saw that with the suppliers. It was like, okay, you got the
Yeah.
big boys doing what they're, but then you look at Hirsch and you looked at some of those, and I feel like those are the specialists, Vault, that are doing
Mhm.
incredibly well, and they're not worried about the big boys because they own
Right.
their island. And so that, and I think that can be true of distributors too.
Yeah, so before I respond, since I said I'm going to judge your take, it is not the white hot take at all, but
Okay.
it's also not a simmering take. I'd say that's a good low and slow take because it was delicious.
Okay.
That was a great take. I actually agree with you. I think our industry reflects society in many ways that the rich get richer, and yeah, I don't know if I would agree that the middle class is struggling so much. But what I'd say the middle class is shifting, which is I think what you were saying. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. You have to be more than just a company or a person that takes a product from over here, someone puts a logo on it over there, and it ships to your client over here.
Right.
Those days, if you're doing that, and you and I have said this for years, if that's what you do, just get out of the business now, or just realize that you're not going to make any more than you ever have. You're
Yeah.
probably not going to get new clients. You have to be boutique is a word that's thrown around maybe a little too often, but there has to be a boutique aspect to it where you are offering other services. You are using complementary services, whether it's print, so if it's something, if you're doing promotional products, or maybe it's SEO optimization, maybe it's digital marketing. When you start packaging services, you become much more valuable and you become something more than just a person who slaps logo on things. So I agree with your take, and it was a delicious take, Kirby.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
You're
That's good.
welcome. All right. Now, okay. Here's something that kind of shocked me a little bit. But I'm going to go with that in a minute. Let's go to a different one. Quite a few new ones. Three that I'd never heard of before. And I always
Yeah.
find this fascinating when there's top 40 in either category, distributor or supplier, that I've never heard of before. Eagle
Yeah.
Promotions
Yep.
at 39, Smart Source at 36, and Sourcing Group. I know Sourcing Group, but
Yep.
I love seeing new people come onto the list.
Yep.
One of the things I'd really like to see who fell off the list. I'd like there to be, it's kind of like the college
Mm.
football rankings every week. When Texas A&M ends up shitting the bed against Appalachian State, I like knowing that they fell from 16 to outside the top 25. There might be others receiving votes. I think that would be interesting. And to me, that's kind of one of those things that makes the list feel somewhat incomplete. I would like to know who fell off. And it's not to rub anybody's nose in it, but this is an important list.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I, I don't know. I go back and forth just because again, what we talked about earlier, it's like almost like if you've taken a big step back for whatever reason, maybe you lost some key people, you lost some big clients, whatever, you take a big step back. It's like, give me a minute. I'll be back, but like don't rub my
But
nose
maybe
in
you
it.
won't be. Maybe you've
Yeah.
intentionally downsized. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily has to have a negative connotation to it.
Mm.
Again, the list is what it is. I just think it would be interesting. That's my,
Yeah, I like it.
my
Okay.
my slow and slow take that may not as be delicious for you as
Yeah, your takes are always delicious, of
um
course.
all right,
Uh,
what do you got? What's next in
okay,
your
so this is I don't know if this is more just a question, I think, for you. Because people keep talking about the tariffs, right? And how
Mhm.
that's affecting, but these were 2024 numbers. So
Pre-tariff numbers, correct?
pre-tariff numbers, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that that was essentially what I was trying to get at because it's like everybody keeps talking about that, but I'm like, I don't think that should have had an effect, right? I think it,
No.
pre-election, all that sort of thing, and that's always weird, but the
Yeah.
tariffs took more effect this year.
Yeah, I think the only thing that the economy would have, or the political state, maybe is a better way to put it, would
Mhm.
have, from a policy perspective, would have impacted the numbers was the uncertainty leading up to the election.
Yeah, which always,
But again, that is, I'll be very interested to see this list next year. I will
yeah,
be extremely interested to see
I
that list
agree.
next year as the roller coaster of tariffs continue.
Yeah, and then I guess to give you an actual observation, I would, and I think you might have referenced it earlier, but I am fascinated by the more and more, certainly e-commerce has been a big part of it,
Yep.
but more and more of this, obviously for imprint and some of these other folks who just live in that space, even
Hmm.
discount mugs and some of those,
Yeah.
seeing the proliferation of them on this list is
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. Here's one. 9 companies on the top 40 showed less revenue from 2023 to 24, and 6 showed no growth. So that's a combined 38%.
Hmm,
And that's before tariffs.
that's
That to
interesting.
me, so I actually went and counted. I'm like, that is concerning to me.
Hmm.
That to me is, so I actually wrote on my thing before tariffs. So we kind of
Yeah.
already discussed that part of it. What is that going to look like next year? Now, again, it might not be, it's not doom and gloom. Nothing is doom and gloom. But I really think it'll be very interesting to see if that number, if we're talking 15, so 38% show of the top 40 showed flat or negative growth and the preponderance was negative, that'd be interesting.
And that was of the distributors, right?
That is distributors, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be curious though, because one of the things that I said there was that the bigger you big get big and the smallers can be
Hmm.
specialists. I mean, I wonder if some of that business didn't go to some of those smaller distributors that are more specialized in the
It
area. I
could
mean, yeah,
absolutely
because
could
it's a
have. It could
40
be
list, there's thousands of companies. You just never know where that business
right.
goes.
It could be an absolute reflection of what you spoke about earlier. I wish we knew. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody does. The time will tell. All right, you got
Yeah.
any more?
Those were my
Okay.
big takeaways, brother.
Real quick ones. The continual rise of something inked.
Mm,
Man, they are really cooking. Up another 4 with a 20% increase in revenue. That's fantastic. I already said it would be interesting to see who fell off the list.
yep.
It's not personal like the Power 50. That's something I wrote
Yeah.
down. I don't necessarily want to see who fell off the list and when it's a
Oh,
personal thing, when it's a
yeah.
human, when it's a
That's a good point.
company, I think it makes sense.
That's a good point.
Um, and if anybody is surprised that foreign imprint is still king, go work somewhere else. Walmart's hiring, okay? Um, Quick final thoughts before
Mhm.
we go into something you didn't plan for.
What
It's
do
an
you know?
interesting list because it is what it is. It's revenue based. I'd like your
Yeah.
thoughts on this. I love the idea of the PPAI 100,
Mhm.
but I'd like it to be more data driven. I cannot stand the industry faith thing. I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. What I like about the ASI top 40 list, it is numbers.
Mhm.
The numbers do not lie. It is
Yeah.
a ranking of revenue, and it doesn't try to be something it's not. And again, this is not a shot necessarily at
Mm.
PPA. I think you need to reconsider how some of the metrics you're using.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that I'll go both ways on this, just for the sake of this discussion. So,
Yeah.
um, yes, what I like about this list is it's like, yep, these are the numbers,
Yeah.
and the numbers are the numbers. What I don't like about this list is it's a little bit less interesting to me. I mean, it is an indicator of what the industry is
Yeah.
doing. What you just mentioned about, the folks on the
Hmm.
list who were that I think is indicative of potentially where the industry is going. So that part's really good.
Yeah.
Um, I do like the PPAI 100 in the sense that
Yeah,
some smaller folks can make the list, and I do think that's kind of interesting. And there's a little bit more
absolutely.
room for debate on that. And I think that we talked about it last time. They'll continue to refine that. I agree with you, by the way.
Absolutely.
The education piece I think is important, but I don't like the way that they judge it.
Right.
Industry faith says who, like so. I'm with you, but I think that both lists. I like that they're different.
Oh, I do too. And again, this is not to rehash a dead horse or whatever that analogy is. This is just
We
there are
rehash
two
a lot of
lists
dead horses.
that are different. I had the honor of being at the ceremony, which was fabulous. Thank you, Michelle Bell, for somehow sneaking me in and letting me darken the door of ASI. And I think Kirby and I, we talked about this. We'd be remiss if we didn't just touch on the fabulous, fabulous winners of the awards. I
Yeah,
personally knew three of them who were there. I know Kirby knows some, but Justin Zavadil for Person of the Year,
yeah,
not a more deserving human on the planet than that guy. That is nicest family in the world. Kelly Yarbrough over at SOC 101 is
mm,
entrepreneur, Supplier Entrepreneur of the Year. I've gotten to know Kelly quite a bit on promo crews and promocations, and boy, that guy is just lightning in a bottle, and he deserves that. And then, of course, our very close friend, the lovely and talented Mandy Rudd for Humanitarian of the Year. Truly, no one more deserving than Mandy Rudd. Her heart is pure as the driven snow when it comes to doing things, doing good things for
yeah.
others. So I'm sure
Yeah.
you would like to add to that, Kirby.
Yeah, I mean, you said it incredibly well. I don't know Kelly, but I love the company that he's creating. We are doing more business with them just because of, as you said, the lightning in a bottle. Justin, I've met him several times. He is just such a good dude. And then Mandy, I just don't know that there are better humans in the industry. And I think you circle around that promo cares group, right? People who've won awards around this, and you just go, yeah, these are people who I aspire to be like. And so, yeah, well done
And
by
I
all.
think I just misspoke. I think I said humanitarian of the year. She was the woman of distinction. I just made an error there,
She's
and I want to correct that.
yeah,
But she could also be the humanitarian of the year. But that's
yeah,
beside the point.
she's the awesome
Um,
person of the year. That's great.
yeah, so that's the surprise I wanted to spring on you. We thought we were going to do it at the top. We decided to do it at the bottom, but that's the way it is. But I'll
I
tell you
love
what,
it.
kids, I want to give a huge thanks to our good friends over at the Shelbyville Pencil Company. You might know them as Shapenco, for sponsoring this fine reunion broadcast. You know, for 90
Awesome.
years and four generations of family ownership, they've defined stability by caring about the success of their distributor partners. Head over to shapenco.com to start your next project today and look at Kirby using or holding a Shapenko stylus pen that is handed out to flight attendants across the globe. Kirby, thank you for coming on. You're always
Always
in the
fun.
bullpen, so when
Yeah.
someone bails on me, I'm sure you'll be doing this again.
Always
But
fun to
no,
see you,
thank you
buddy.
for doing it. Yeah, it's always fun to see you, and I think that'll do it for today.